Okay, so today I'm going to take you through changing a Fox rear podium shock from a dual rate spring setup to a single rate spring setup. So the first thing you have to do obviously is take the shock off the rear of the bike, and with the shock off the bike, the first thing you need to do is to remove the pinch bolt out of the preload nut. You then need to back the preload nut right off to make sure that the springs are nice and loose so that you can work on removing them from the shock. From the bottom of the shock, you then need to take the clip ring out of the bottom of the shock. To do that, you can just pull the, slide the bottom spring retainer back towards the top of the shock body to access that clip ring. Using the appropriate pliers, get the clip ring off, and then it's a matter of sliding the bottom spring retainer off the end of the shock, just like that. Between the bottom spring retainer and the spring is a thrust washer, which you need to ensure that you keep for your single rate setup. So with the bottom all accessible now, it's a matter of sliding the springs off. So there's the main spring, just slide straight off, and then the tender spring. You also need to ensure that you remove the crossover nut that is on the shaft of the shock. Once you've got the two dual springs off, you can see there that there's some considerable difference into the total length of springs between the dual setup and the single setup. The main spring on the dual setup is around 7 inches, I believe, whereas the single setup is a 9-inch spring. So before you put the single spring on, you need to actually undo the preload nut completely, take it off the bottom of the shock and flip it over. And the reason for that is because the single spring and the main spring of a dual setup is smaller in diameter than the tender spring that sits at the top of a dual setup. And you'll know what I mean when you go to do this yourself. So it's a matter then of replacing the top thrust washer, slide your new spring on, the bottom thrust washer, and the bottom spring retainer, and the clip. And as you can see there, it'll all just fall back into place. Just making sure it's all seated properly and you've got everything in there correctly and your clip rings in correctly. And then it's a matter of winding down the preload nut back to seat all the spring and washers into place correctly. So you can see there it's really not a difficult process in replacing the dual springs with a single spring. The reason I've done it in this instance is because with the DS450 it is highly recommended for motocross applications to use a single rate setup. In this instance, this is a 300-pound 9-inch spring and it's a Fox spring, of course. So once you've got your preload nut in place all the way down, ensure that you replace the pinch bolt out of the preload nut. Don't do that pinch bolt up all the way just yet, because once you've got that shock back on your bike, obviously you need to then go about setting your ride height correctly. For motocross applications, you want that around the 7 inches from the bottom of the frame to the ground. Obviously read all the how-tos in the manual to do that correctly, and if not, get hold of Fox and they'll help you set it up. So you can see there, like I said, just put the pinch bolt back in. With this Fox rear shock being on a DS450, you may notice up a little bit further in the clip that there's some hose over the top of the remote reservoir hose. And the reason I've done that is because the DS450's shock hose runs along the right hand side of the bike. That's the side the chain's on, and anyone who's got a DS450 knows that it can be a problem and get in the way, and that just gives it a little bit extra protection from the chain hitting it, or for that matter anything hitting it, and blowing the line and losing your oil and ending up in a DNF in a race. So there it is. That is the process of swapping a dual rate spring with a single rate spring. It's very easy. If I can do it, anyone can do it.